And we could start the meeting with a
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Our first order of business is introducing our new board member, Leanne Flynn. And I have a brief bio if I could share. But Leanne is over on the side of the room, and Leanne comes to us with 34.5 years of experience as a teacher. Get the months right. And coincidentally, I have 34 years and 6 months in the state of Connecticut. So I saw that number. Are we, is Stephen on with us?
Nope, that was you. That was the live YouTube recording just coming through the audio, so I muted it.
Okay, are you okay now? Sure.
We're good. We're
Very
good.
good, thank you. All right, so as I was saying, Leanne has spent 34.5 years with the Rocky Hill School District. She comes to us with 3 masters, an undergrad from Central Connecticut, and a master's from Central, and the most recent, her administration 092 certificate from Sacred Heart University in 2014. So welcoming Leanne aboard, we're happy to have you. And Leanne, would you like to share anything about your, your
Sure.
experience or being here?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the warm welcome, and I'm so excited to be a part of this group. I feel like I've been training for this for the past 35 years. We say 34.5 because I started out 0.5 in Wethersfield, and then I finished my career in Rocky Hill, spent my career in Rocky Hill. And I'm just very excited. One of my masters is in the politics of education and school law. So I'm ready, and I can't wait to be an active participant. And I've heard such wonderful things about all of you. I'm excited.
Thank you, welcome. Welcome aboard. All right, so our second order of business today.
Should we go around and introduce ourselves to
You
Leanne?
sure
or-
can, yeah,
We also
absolutely.
have our 2 new students.
Yeah, so I was gonna
Great,
get to
thanks,
that, but let's do that while we're here. Let's start with our 2 new board representatives, John Witzak, correct, John?
Yes.
And Elliot Curtis, welcome them both. And I asked them briefly before the meeting if they would introduce themselves, tell a little about themselves in terms of how they got here and where they are in school. Gentlemen.
Hi everyone, my name is John Witzak. I'm a senior at the high school. I first heard about this opportunity from Mr. Anastasio, and I mean, I was definitely immediately hooked. I think it's, I've always wondered what kind of goes on behind the scenes, and I've heard of the Board of Education as this big kind of, at least in my mind, like a cloud, just like a mist that at least I didn't know a whole lot about. So I wanted to see what it really was about, and I thought that if at least I could represent, I guess, the people in my school for some sort of, some sort of change that they, like if they wanted to push forward, I thought that would be something that I feel like I could kind of handle. And I mean, like along with my own kind of discovery of what this was about, that was a big part, kind of making sure that everyone at school, at least that wanted one had a voice.
Excellent.
My name is Elliot Hurtis, and I'm a junior at the high school. I first heard about this from, I think, my email, and I decided that I wanted to try it out, like see if I could get it, because I just thought that, similar to John, that having a voice could be good. Giving other people a voice would also be great. And yeah, that's why I decided to be on this. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Welcome aboard, John and Elliot. We're happy to have you. And if we could start with Jim, introducing yourself to our member.
Certainly. My name is Jim Henderson. I live in Old Saybrook and have for the last 30 years and have been a Board of Education member for about 10 now.
Great, I'm just going to try to say as you can. So my name is Eileen Baker. I too live in Old Saybrook. I've been on the school board now for 32 years. I have 2 girls that graduated from Old Saybrook High School. And they really enjoyed it and learned a lot. And at the same time, I was always very interested in student voice and student choice. And so with that understanding, I joined a school board, fortunate enough to get elected. And actually, part of what you had a chance to look at, I would think, is the student representative to boards of education policy and regulation. And so being one of the first districts in the state to actually have student representatives, I'm involved in the Connecticut Association for Boards of Education. And so whenever they have a yearly conference, I usually present on student representatives to boards of education, and we get a lot of a cross-section of students from around the state, and you learn about what they would like and what do we do in Old Saybrook and what do we do in other towns, and they get really energized by that. The other piece that I was really always involved in, and we're really grateful to have Jan as superintendent, is I've always been championing personalization, you know, in terms of what do students know about how they learn and what are the things that they might have a voice and a choice and thoughts about. And so you're lucky to be here at this time because there's some very exciting things going on. And I'm a teacher for the deaf by profession. My parents were deaf, grandparents were deaf, and I do a lot of consulting around the country for prisons and jails.
Gentlemen, my name's Alan Heil. I'm the vice chair of the Board of Ed. I stuttered to recall how many years I've been on the board. It's 5+ years, but it's certainly less than 8, so somewhere between 5 and 8. I should know that. But I am very happy to be a part of this board. I formerly served in the East Haddam School District for many, many years as a school board member. And it's a pleasure working with this board and certainly our superintendent. So welcoming you fellows aboard.
We know each other. This is my 10th year as superintendent. I love this name.
Oh, hi guys. My name is Karen Broder. It's been a privilege to serve on this board for 29 years now. I've raised 6 kids, and all product of our great school system here. So it's been, as I said, it's been an honor to work with all of everybody sitting around the table, especially your superintendent. So welcome, and I think it'll be plenty for you guys.
My name is George Chang, board member. Years served is definitely need to, so no point actually trying to do that anymore. So, yeah, and absolute honors working with Jen.
Welcome to the 3 of you. I'm Karina Julius. I too have been on the board less than everybody else around the table, about 4 years, I think. We are a great group of people to work with. We consider things, I think, very carefully. And John, I've known you your entire life, so it's very exciting to see you here. I think you guys would be great representatives. And I've just never been able to say that about somebody that I'm like working with, you know, so. Yeah, so excited to first start to a great year. So thanks.
Hi, I'm Trevor Nichols. I have 2 boys who graduated in the last 3 years, and this is my first year on the board, just finishing up. John, I coach you in Little League, so nice to see you here. But it's a wonderful board. I really enjoyed working here, everybody on the board, and yeah, it's great. So.
I'm Julie Pendleton. I'm the Director of Operations, Facilities, and Finance in my 20th year here. I work right here at Central Office with our superintendent. And you will see me from time to time in your buildings for sure. Also had 2 children, a son and a daughter, who are graduates of Old Saybrook. And my husband is a graduate of Old Saybrook. So longtime fans of what we do here. So welcome, both of you. Cool.
And of course, you know Trent Shervers, who's at everything too.
Very good. I think we've covered all the introductions. So with that, that's Stephen. Stephen is on. Oh, there he is. I see him. I see his name in it, right? Just want to be sure he was with us. Stephen, can you hear us? Next, have Stephen introduce himself as well. You hear us, Stephen?
I can. Sorry for the delay. I was having some technical difficulties.
No worries. So we just introduced ourselves as board members to the new board member, Leanne Flynn, and to our new board representatives, John and Elliot. If you would introduce yourself. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Stephen Beeler, and I'm finishing up my first year, so coming back for year 2.
Thank you, Stephen.
Good sign.
Very good. Next on the agenda is our election of officers. So we have board member officer discussions. And at this point, Dan and I discussed opening this to the floor for any board member who is interested in becoming the board chair. So I do want to preface that with just a thank you to Tara Barros, who was our previous chair. She was a wonderful chair for us. I think she served several years, at least three years with us as the board chair. She's going to be really missed. I discussed with Superintendent Crucio the possibility of bringing her back so we could say goodbye to her. Because we really didn't have a chance to say goodbye to Tara. And so we hope to do that. But I know that everybody on this board has appreciated her service, countless hours serving the board, working with Superintendent Crucio on behalf of our school district. So with that, moving on to the election for the board chair, which is the seat that was vacated by Tara. It's up. So is there an interest from board members? So Trevor Nichols is interested in becoming the board chair. Anyone else? Okay, at this time, Trevor, could you share with the board your interest in terms of
Well, I was quite surprised when Tara stepped down in the summer, and I mean, I just finished my first year and I had a very good first year, pretty quiet, and I really want to take on a different role, or a bigger role on the board this year. So when the opportunity came up, I thought this is something I should definitely consider. So I have, as many of you know, I've been president of PTOs for when the kids were in school, the middle school, Goodwin, and the high school, and I work with teachers, I work with parents, I work with Jan, and I really love the community. I love the board, what we do here, and I just think this would be an awesome opportunity. It'd be an honor to serve in that role. So that's why I'm interested.
So the way this is run is that we will take a tally from board members and a simple majority wins the nomination. So we're going to pass ballots around to make this official.
And then Alan and I will count them.
So please indicate and then sign and print the name.
Good point. Not sure how we can get Mr. Beeler to participate.
I'm just thinking about that.
You could send me an email.
Yes.
Steve?
Can we also do
Policy about, are they, can you vote remotely?
We can now, yes.
Okay, good, yeah.
Steve, you can't, yes, you can. Hey, Steve, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you send Trent and me an email casting your vote?
Sure.
Or text me on my phone and I'll just show that to Alan?
In theory, he could vote for anybody.
Yes, yes. So what we handed out, Steve, was a ballot that was every single board member's name for chair. So you can send any name of any board member to us.
Okay.
Do I have all of the papers for the room? Okay, that would be from Steve. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Steve. Oh.
So all board members have voted for Trevor Nichols, and welcome Trevor Nichols as our new board chair. Passing over
You get the gavel.
the gavel and the Robert's rules. So please join
Give it a
us.
good thing.
Oh, meeting to order. flyer.
What's the view like from here? Right, I will admit, I take a lot of space, so I'll clean up my mess here. The committee liaison committee list was part of the election, this, after the
So all of
election.
us, yeah.
Yeah, so we should do that too.
Very good.
So this is just for all of the board members. Reminder that whenever it's certainly annually, but whenever we have changes on the board, we print the Board of Education liaison list, because there may be an opportunity to become part of standing committees or ad hoc committees, or a liaison assignments to different subcommittees. And so you can see, I'm sure you had a chance to look at this, that, Tara Burrows was on a couple of committees. So there's certainly room there. There's a bit of an error on this. It says that the representative is Tara Burrows, but actually it's Trevor. So that is filled at this time. Also, the board sometimes talks about just shuffling things a little bit. Some people say, I'd rather not do this somewhere. I'd like to be part of that. And that's certainly an opportunity too. As far as the subcommittees go, and none of this has to happen tonight, it's just putting it out in front of you for consideration. As far as the subcommittees go, we try to avoid obviously having a quorum of any of those committees, a quorum of the full board at any of those subcommittees, because if we do, then actually you have a Board of Education meeting. And so we try to keep it under the 5 for any of the committees that are there. That's the only limitation for joining a standing committee. So I turn that over, and the chair and I will talk about, when to bring this back. This is just for your consideration tonight.
Remember a long time ago, we used to have representatives of the board, not assigned, but are chosen, to be like a Goodwin school, or be at the intermediate, middle school, or to be at the high school. I was wondering, because we're so available and we go to things, do we still need to have that, Jan?
I think we stopped.
I think we stopped, but I was just asking, I just didn't know.
I mean, that is entirely up to the Board of Education and what the board would like to do. We're in the habit of bringing the administrators from the schools to one meeting every month, but if the board also wanted to assign people to go to the events at a particular school, that's entirely up to all of you.
Hello, Karen.
Sure.
So I just wanted to, I do recall the discussion we had, I think a couple of years ago when we were talking about committee assignments, and I think there was a general consensus that rather than assigning a specific person, because it was often difficult for that person to make whatever school event, anybody is more than welcome to attend any event at any school.
Oh, yeah, I think it was for visibility. At that time, it was just.
And that's
people were
still
like,
the
oh,
intent.
and that's,
Yeah.
Yeah, just as an aside, I noticed in reviewing the standing committee list that I'm on 3 of the 4 committees, and not wanting to be a super volunteer or anything, but I'd be willing to forego my position on the personnel committee if a new member would like that.
And I'd be more than happy to take that.
I think, Jim, you missed that meeting and we assigned you all those things. That's fine.
I just have a question. I know that you mentioned that Tara was a member of multiple committees, and it does say that the board chair is ex officio. So does that mean we do need more volunteers on those in the spot where Tara's name would have appeared? I was just looking for a little clarification on that. Am I phrasing that correctly?
So my understanding is she's the board chair is ex officio on anything, but that doesn't mean she votes at those meetings. So, so I don't know that we necessarily do need, but we could add to the teachers one, which just completed. We could add one other person or two other people at this point, and you could add two other people to the superintendent administrator's contract negotiations too.
For the teacher one, it was, I just served on that. Does that mean I'm on that one?
That's up to the board.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we can make that happen.
So we didn't, if I could speak, I'm sorry, just comment on that. So we didn't have a regular scheduled board meeting, and Leanne had expressed as already being appointed a board member of interest in being part of the teacher negotiations committee, and discussed that with Jan and Karen. And, you know, so she served one meeting at so
Just
far.
one, okay.
So I think there, if you're interested, you should let the board know. Sure.
So I think that typically it's just something that board members think about between now and the next meeting, and we'll try to get it finalized then for the year.
Typically, in years past, this has come back at the fall leadership meeting in October, and then you guys say, yep, we're definitely gonna make these changes, and I'll type up the new list and get it out to you guys.
Okay, perfect. Yes. I was gonna say, just to reiterate, I think what Jen was saying, maybe for clarification, that a board chair is able to just sit on any committee that he or she would like to sit in on. And just to listen to kind of get the, you know, the pulse of, you know, maybe what they're going to be discussing that night, and be able to offer support. So that's what that's about.
Yeah, and I guess I just wanted to ensure that we didn't mistake that for being a sitting member.
Right.
Where there might be an opportunity to have somebody volunteer.
Okay, so next on the agenda, audience of citizens.
So do we have okay, thank you. I'll introduce you or introduce you a second, sir. So our meeting conduct, was going to review that. Public address, the board may permit any individual or group to address the board concerning any subject that lies within its jurisdiction, except as noted below during portions of the board's regular or special meetings so designated on the agenda for such purpose. Number one, 3 minutes are allotted to each speaker, and a maximum of 30 minutes total to public comment period. The board may modify these limitations at the beginning of the meeting if the number of persons wishing to speak makes it advisable to do so. Number two, a Board of Education member shall be appointed by the chairperson prior to the meeting to act as a timekeeper for the meeting if deemed necessary by the chairperson. Number three, no boisterous conduct shall be permitted at any Board of Education meeting. Persistence in boisterous conduct shall be grounds for summary termination by the chairperson of that person's privilege of address. Number four, all speakers must identify themselves by name and address. Number five, speakers are required to refrain from presentations that discuss specific employees of the Board of Education, regardless of whether or not the employee is identified in the presentation by name or by another reference that tends to identify an individual. Members of the public are encouraged to submit commendations, comments, charges, or complaints concerning specific employees to an appropriate administrator and or the Board of Education under provisions of the Board of Education policy. Number six, the Board of Education does not typically respond to specific questions during the course of the meeting, but may direct the superintendent of schools to respond or clarify a specific question or issue at the meeting or subsequent to the meeting. Or the board chairperson may respond on behalf of the Board of Education. Thank you for that. If you could start reintroducing yourself, sir.
Sure. My name is Chris Ratneri. I live at 10 Ovid Heights in Old Saybrook. I have a daughter who is in 10th grade in high school. And as Jan might tell you, I might be the first unelected board member that's around here. We've spoken quite a bit over the last couple of years. And the reason I'm here tonight is because I have a pretty big concern about the discourse that's going on within the classroom and the kind of a pushing down of politics to the kids. A lot of this goes on without the knowledge of the principal. Some of this stuff goes into curriculum without people really realizing it's there. I think hopefully Jane can will attest to this. I've always been somebody who feels like there should be balance. Okay, I'm not asking for things to necessarily be removed. I'm not asking for, there are some things that I think should be removed. You'll see some examples. I have some things for you guys to look at. But the problem is there's a lot of top down. There's a lot of things coming from the teachers. And again, I'm not here to pick on any specific teacher. it's the assignments and content. There's never an alternate view. There's always a one-sided view. That one-sided view is pushed down to the students, and it's made to look like that is the correct view. I don't believe my daughter needs to be told what the correct view is. Personally, I think that's my job in a lot of ways, is to do the kitchen table issues at my kitchen table, not to have it done in the classroom, especially not in something that's not a social studies class. There's things coming through, whether it's accounting, English, so, science, there's a lot of things that happen. I have some examples like poetry. There's a poem called America that is anything but American. There's drugs, there's sex, there's swearing, there is things about Marxism and being a Marxist. In 8th grade, Prophets of Rage, this is a wonderful, wonderful visual from the video that every student was shown without anybody's permission. Last year, the marijuana episode of Bill Nye, which told every child in those classes, every street name of the drugs, what they're used for, that you can be a functioning stoner, and things like that. This year, we've tied grades to pronoun use. We've used examples already. This is just this year. We've used examples like excerpts in English class. Nobody remembers the names of people who built walls. I wonder who that's referencing. A syllabus with the 1619 project, which my understanding is not part of curriculum. And of course, there's a lot of stuff going on, which you've probably seen on the news in the last couple of days or couple of weeks with Greenwich people and other school people that are doing things. And, the reason I came here is I wrote to Jan, I would much rather be a partner to teachers and to administrators than to be in opposition to you. And I've done that, actually. I'm on the public relations committee. I'm on the parent council. I've actually helped pass your budget. So I hope you will take some of this into consideration, because this stuff needs to stop. It needs.
Yes, sir, sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
You just a few minutes. You have any final comments?
I just would like somebody to take a look at some of these things and, publicly start to address whether you believe that parents should actually have a say. I would like every board member to go on record and on public record to say, parents need to have a say, or they don't. And if you don't, then that's fine. It's your opinion, but give us a good reason. Because I feel like you're sometimes stepping on my parenting. You are undoing the things that I teach at home by what you do in the classroom. And I think that really needs to stop. And if there is going to be a one-sided view, then just bring the other side in. Bring the other opinion in so that they can actually make decisions for themselves as opposed to us telling them what it is. There's been activist posters and things like that. So anyway, I don't know if you want to leave this with Trent or whomever, but I would love to insert that for people's review.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Emily Lemire, 27 Briarwood Drive, Old Saybrook. I'm here tonight. This is my son Jameson Lemire. He's opted to attend the Marine Science Magnet School in Groton, which offers him academic opportunities unique to that school and his interests. Unlike private or other alternative schools, the Magnet School does not offer an athletic program. Our family was saddened to learn that despite the fact that most towns support allowing these children to try out and play for sports in their hometown, Old Saybrook does not. Playing on sports teams is important for physical health and wellness, learning leadership and teamwork, developing time management skills, and fostering accountability and responsibility. Playing in town allows Jameson to maintain connections with friends in the community where he resides. The effect of the COVID-19 pandemic was devastating to the mental health of adolescents, and these effects have been widespread. I believe we should be supporting and investing in the next generation, not precluding them from taking part in physical activity simply because they have opted to pursue an alternative academic opportunity. I find it peculiar that despite this stance, Westbrook students are allowed to play on the same football team as my older son. Old Saybrook students have left the district to pursue athletics that are not available at our school, such as crew or swim. To date, I haven't gotten any clear feedback as to why this rule is in place, other than Old Saybrook holds students accountable to higher standards than even the CIAC. if I can understand exactly what these standards are, I would be more than happy to figure out how to create a system that ensures the same standards are being met and how to provide continued documentation of such between Marine Science and Old Saybrook, so the athletic director is not taxed any further than he may already be. I can understand why there may be reservations in allowing a child who is homeschooled or attending a private school to play on the high school teams, given that private schools are not required to comply with the same rules and regulations. And I imagine it's difficult, if not impossible, to ensure those homeschooled are meeting or exceeding requirements. However, I do not perceive this same issue occurring at a Connecticut magnet school. We would support getting regular documentation that he's passing all academic classes, not in trouble at school, not missing school, to be sure he's in good standing and meeting the requirements of both Old Saybrook school system and the CIAC. We put out a petition that currently has over 400 supporters in favor of him being allowed to play sports for Old Saybrook High School. And that list includes hundreds of Old Saybrook taxpayers. And as a healthcare provider for over 25 years, who is now primarily focused on pediatric and adolescent mental health care, I'm deeply saddened to even be having this discussion. Why should I have to make my child choose between academics and sports when his motivation for playing sports is to engage with this community, stay active, have fun? It's not about being a Division I college athlete or a star NFL player. It's about the fundamentals of growing into a healthy, happy, and well-adjusted young adult. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure what my minutes are, so
Yeah,
I tried
I was
to
just
cut
gonna
it down now that
let
I know it's 3.
So, any final comments?
I guess just I'll also add that Mia Cost, who came across the petition, is a current graduate, or she's about to be a graduate of the Coast Guard Academy, and she sent a 2-page letter in support of it. She played for Valley Regional, and I'll just read a quick excerpt. Even,
I'm sorry, in fairness to other speakers,
that's fine.
just-
Okay, so I
Thank
can
you.
attach it or leave it for you.
That'd be fine, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm James Lemire, 27 Briar Drive. Thank you for taking your time to speak with me today. I've been active in playing sports my whole life, and I've enjoyed the physical part, but also the friendships that I have made throughout it. When I first moved, it was hard to make friends at first because of Old Saybrook being a small community. I feel as if sports helped me to connect with people further and to making friends 10 times easier. They helped me create friendships that have lasted for a while now. Now I come home and feel isolated and left out when my friends are on sports teams at practice and hanging out with each other. I really hope you will reconsider this decision because I really want to be a part of the community I live in and be a part of the sports teams. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other audience, citizens who would like to speak tonight? You're very well. Jan, any comments?
No.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Correspondence here.
First, we have the reports from our student reps.
Can I ask also, were we supposed to elect more officers or
No.
just the one?
Just
Oh,
the one.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. Thanks for that clarification.
How about student rep reports?
Okay, so our first report, it's not including, school starters, so it's pretty brief. But in terms of clubs, student council had their first meeting this past Thursday. The first NHS meeting for seniors took place today. And that was just kind of a plan for the upcoming academic year. Here's Elliot with
Picture day for the high school takes place on the 21st. The virtual senior college planning night is on the 19th from 6 to 7. And the campaign retreat for the freshmen went well. Smooth transition into high school. And for extracurriculars, there's a high school open house on the 15th from 6 to 8. And a RAM booster meeting is being held in the OSHS LMC on the 12th from 7 to 8.
And then for athletics update, there is a fall sports night, which takes place virtually from 6 to 7 p.m. on September 14th, tomorrow. Girls soccer opened their season away against Portland, and unfortunately had a loss 2-1. They play Valley Regional on the 15th and Old Lyme on the 19th. Boys soccer started their season with a win at home versus Portland on Friday afternoon. They play Hale Ray this evening. I wasn't sure the outcome of that game, but they play Valley Regional on the 15th as well. Field hockey had their first game of the season against Morgan at home on Thursday, and they opened with a win. Their next contest is against North Branford on the 16th and Waterford on the 17th. Unfortunately, OSW football opened with a loss against HK at home on Saturday, and they follow with North Branford on Friday the 16th. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for our board reps?
Wait, they have another, there's another section. So I started the page, it said new.
Yep, so
It says new
It was the
schedule, there's
submission
another
to-
section that said he was gonna
that's you too,
report on.
right, guys?
Yeah,
Somebody
somebody,
has it down here.
somebody, I wanted to have questions about it.
Oh, yeah, okay, so, sorry about that. We had a little trouble. We
We're all
wrote
doing
two,
this tonight.
we wrote two
Okay.
separate reports instead of collaborating for one, and we submitted them both by accident. So there is a new schedule for, classes this year as opposed to last year. We run on a 6-block schedule for most days, except, on Mondays, we have all 8 of our classes. And, from Tuesday through Friday, we drop our 4th and 8th block, and then 3rd and 7th and so on and so on. And then Friday, we drop our 1st and our 5th. Personally, I feel like this new schedule, it has its positives and its negatives. There's definitely, well, obviously, there's less time physically, but it also feels like I'm being rushed a little bit more in my classes. Like, I feel like once we sit down and get organized, it's already time to go. But I also feel like with this, I'm taking in a lot more information because I know that I need to be more attentive as I'm switching from these different classes. I feel like it's a lot more beneficial, because my mind is already in that, I guess, learning zone.
There has been implemented at the high school a new phone policy. Yeah, there's also, I don't really know. I don't think it's really changed anything. A lot of the teachers have had a similar idea in place.
I think it's about uniform enforcement. I think
Yeah.
Trying to get everybody to be on the same page so that students aren't confused.
Yeah, and that's a,
What is it?
previously teachers had just like not really allowed phone use in the classroom. And I think now it's just like an official rule instead of on a teacher by teacher basis. This year, the advisory period, which is a period in the middle of the day on every day except Monday. At the time of this report being submitted, we hadn't had an advisory period, so this was on the previous year's advisory. A lot of students weren't really a huge fan of it, but overall, it seemed like it accomplished its goal of connecting people, so.
You've had advisory now, right? So
Yeah.
Any experiences that are different from last year or?
I think it's a bit different because the periods are shorter, so there's just not really you don't have as much time. During our advisory, my advisory on Friday, we just had an activity, a team building activity. And I think that really accomplished the goal of connecting people, so.
I will say it's refreshing. It's a good period of time. It's usually right after your 4th class, and before lunch. So it's like a good break from, or no, sorry, after your 3rd class. But I think it's a good break to get yourself organized. You can, it's sort of like a free period for you to kind of get what you need done. And obviously that varies person to person on what they will do with that period. but students are contained to their advisory room, but they can also choose to meet with teachers during this time. But it's a lot more structured, unlike a study hall where students can wander. They're kind of put in this one room, and unless they have a written okay from a teacher, they're kind of just there. So it's a lot more formal. And I think that's definitely helpful as opposed to just a free period to kind of run around and do whatever you want.
And did you say you have advisory every day or just once?
Every day except Monday, because Monday we have all our 8 classes.
We have a flex period on every day except, it's called flex on every day except Monday. And we have like a proper advisory every other Friday.
Okay, so I'm a little bit confused. Because I know that advisory has been in Old Saybrook for a long time. But advisory, from my understanding, is not a time where you're connecting with teachers. It's actually a topic that gets brought up, and then students are then getting thoughts about whatever that topic, might be.
I recognize my mistake. I was talking about flex time, but like Elliot said, advisory is 2 Fridays out of every month. I was talking about the flex period, but advisory also falls within that flex period. So sorry about that.
No, that's okay. The other thought is I was curious to know if the students have an opportunity to meet with whomever, there's a staff member, right, that leads it. If there's opportunity for students to connect with that staff member at some point and say, well, like say we're talking about dating or whatever we're talking about, do you have an opportunity or do you feel like it might be beneficial to offer your thoughts about, maybe we could talk about this because I know that I'm experiencing that. So maybe my other peers are experiencing that same thing. I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
curious.
So before we did the activity this past Friday, the students had an opportunity to vote on what they, or provide suggestions for what they wanted to do. Granted, this was the first one, so we had 1 of 2 options and no one really threw out anything else. Because it was more of an activity and not a discussion for this one. But yeah, students do have the opportunity to put out their thoughts on topics that they want to be discussed.
You mind sharing what topic came up?
Oh, no, like I said, this past Friday was an activity.
Team building, but in
for
general.
team building. But students can, last year, what my advisory group had thrown out was anything from, like you said, dating as a young person to mental health issues or organization, getting things on top, and then like right around like midterms and finals, we had like these big like discussions on what was the best way to prepare for those. So I mean, really anything we could throw out.
Super, thanks for sharing. And other groups actually mixing grade levels, so you can have seniors and freshmen and.
No, they, at least in my group, it's all students in my grade.
Yeah,
Is
same with my grade. And also, it was the same group last year that I had this year.
Mhm.
So I think the goal is probably to like keep those people
Community
together.
building.
Yeah.
Yeah, have like a group of people that aren't necessarily your
Right,
close friends.
exactly right.
That are still in your grade, so they have like relevant, I guess, scenario, they go through the same sort of things that you go through.
How long are the periods? Do they change, do the length of periods change from 8 classes to Tuesday through Friday?
So Monday, I think each period is around 45 minutes, and then it goes to 54 every other, the
All the
rest of
other
the week.
days.
And then the advisory period is, I think, around a half hour.
Any other questions for our board reps? Thank you, guys.
Good job.
Like,
Very
Very
well
well
done.
done.
Very well
We're
done.
so glad we could get you.
First one.
Okay, so next on the agenda, the correspondence.
Yep, we do have some correspondence this evening. The first one is the September CAVE liaison.
Thank you.
Night.
The liaison newsletter, talk about the convention coming up at the end of November, other professional development webinars and dates. So that's on here for you to look at. There's a letter from a parent with questions regarding the high school start time and the bus schedules, and Jan has addressed that with her.
Actually, I think it was just Pendleton.
Oh, okay, somebody
Dealt with that, yeah. It's dated August 28th, so we've had more than one conversation.
Okay.
since then, And some adjustments to time, but we're still struggling with being down 1 bus.
Yeah.
Because they can't get a driver. And we still are ironing out the last problems with about two of our buses.
We're
we're getting there.
Getting closer and
Yeah.
closer, right? And it was typical first
Yeah.
2 week issues with buses.
And still on the news tonight, talking about
Yeah.
statewide
Yeah.
issue. I mean,
It's
it's still
typical
all over
no
the
matter
place.
where
Every
you are.
house and up
Yes.
bus drivers.
You know,
Yeah.
it's difficult all
Yeah.
the way around.
First few weeks are the worst.
But people have been understanding of that because it is on the news and they do
Right.
understand that, you know, this isn't anybody's fault. And I'm just grateful that we have the wonderful drivers that we do and that they're so wonderful about showing up to work every day and they pick up the kids and they're doing it in a safe manner. And that's really the most important thing we can hope for right now.
Great. Thank you. And then the final piece of correspondence is a letter from Cape, just thanking the board for the participation in Cape, you know, in the whole organization. So again, they're just expressing their willingness to support us in any way they can. And I'll just send that along. That's it. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is our consent agenda is the minutes from the last 3 meetings. The minutes are in your notebook. So, need a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
I mean,
Discussion. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Steve could vote, I didn't see.
I believe Steve, did you vote in the affirmative?
Yes, he did.
Affirmative, yes.
Thank you. The slight lag, we weren't sure.
Okay, so, next, educational issues for discussion. We'll start with the community report. Yeah.
Sure. As I said, you say I make mention of the usual bus situation made worse this year because of the universal bus driver shortage, though I have to say M&J did amazing work to accommodate the school start time change, to get as many buses on the road as possible. We're just down one here. I'm hearing very difficult stories from other communities. So as Julie said, I echo her thoughts. We're grateful that things have gone as smoothly as they have. And you know, the opening programs at each school, our administrators will be here at the next meeting. So if you have specific questions for them about their opening programs at their schools, if you don't mind saving them till then, unless you want to try me and see if I can pass the quiz. But things have been going along well. I have been in all of the buildings. About every third day, I get to go to all of them so far this year, which has been great. And it's nice to be back in the buildings. Things feel really good. There's a lot of norming and resetting of behaviors. I think that during COVID, there was such disruption that many of us forgot how to be, not just kids, we all forgot how to be good citizens in settings. And so we're relearning. And each of the schools is going through a different version of it and handling it in different ways because it's developmentally appropriate to do that. I've already started, as I said, being in classrooms. I'll start real observations soon. Trent sent the invitations out to all the new teachers so I can get in to see all the new ones, which we've listed here. And the only thing that I would add is Old Saybrook High School is also having their virtual, they're doing this virtually, their sports night on the 14th. So that's when all the parents have to go and listen to the rules and regulations about sports. Obviously, I've been to 2 games under the lights. Yeah, it's pretty awesome, right? It's pretty amazing. What's really magical, if I could use the word, is the way the community just gravitates to the place. And so I'm looking around, I'm talking to one gentleman next to me. It turns out to be the bus driver for the opposing team. And then I'm talking to somebody over here who was a grandmother of a player. And I thought, this feels really good. So really thankful to the folks who did all that work, Alan, Julie, Scott. And, you know, I would like to suggest that this board do something for that committee, honor them, because they worked really hard over the last year.
Jan, I was gonna say, not being a sports person, how do you get a list of all the things that are gonna be happening like on that?
So you can download everything off the CIAC.
Oh, yeah, there's an app.
Every single game, every single Saybrook game, every home game, every away game, particulars, teams or all of them.
I just thought I might like to talk about it. with you,
Yeah,
you know.
if you, next time you and I get together for a meeting, I'll show you how to do that.
If I may, and Jan and certainly Julie can confirm this, I understand there's a date for the opening.
30th.
We
Yeah.
had soft openings already with James and Royce, but the 30th of September.
Oh,
Old Saybrook girls for varsity soccer versus Morgan.
Right, so it'll be a 6 PM ceremony and celebration and a 6:30 start to the game. And one of the things that will happen at that is all the people who were donors will be celebrated at that time.
Steve? Yeah, before we got too far into the agenda here, I was just gonna make it's not really a motion, but under our bylaws, posting of agenda, section 2C, the board may add any items to the agenda of any regular meeting by 2/3 vote of those members present. And I just was wondering if there was 2/3 of us that would like to hear a little bit more about the student sport issue. The student who would like to play sports but has not received the okay from us. So I'm not sure if it's a motion that gets made or just a vote.
You have to make, I think if you're looking to add something to a current regular board meeting agenda, you have to make a motion to add an item to the agenda, and then you have to motion the item after that.
At the beginning of the meeting.
That I'm not certain of, unfortunately.
I can't hear everybody. I can't hear the side comments.
Were you able to hear me, Steve?
I can hear you. I can't hear the other side comments.
So we were trying to decide if that motion had to be made at a particular time in the evening or not. We don't think that it does. It's just.
Yeah, there's nothing in the bylaws that says it has to be made at a specific time. I'm looking right at them. So I'd like to make a motion that we look into the student wanting to play on our sports who's a resident of our town.
You want to make a motion to add an agenda item?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Seconded.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Jim.
Thank you.
Discussion?
I'll discuss it. I would like to talk about it, but I'm not sure that this is the forum to do it right now. I think it's something that should come to another board meeting as an agenda item. And that will give the superintendent and the board chair an opportunity to collaborate on that and bring it to us in a more formalized way.
Well, I think we could vet out the questions that may exist so that when we come back in 2 weeks, it can be a formal agenda item and maybe have some of our, I would just like to be able to speak as to what my questions are. And I think if we added it to tonight's agenda, we could just ask a couple quick questions and then come back in 2 weeks with some more information. That's my purpose of adding it tonight, or my desire of adding it tonight.
So for discussion, to add to what has been said already by Eileen, I think providing the superintendent with the opportunity to research this more. I don't think all the questions were presented by the parent, and she may reach out
He's
to
just making
Jan
a motion
separately.
to add an agenda item
Excuse
right
me?
now,
No.
right?
Yeah, I'm just having a
Tonight.
discussion, that's all. So there was a second and it's open for discussion. So I'm just thinking as well that we should wait till Jane has an opportunity.
But it's my understanding that this has already been brought forward to the superintendent. And that's why this parent came to the board for further comment.
Nope, I don't think that that's accurate. I think this person might have been talking with high school administration. I'm assuming.
Okay.
At least I
So this
don't
is the
remember
first that
that.
you're hearing about it?
No, that's not true, but I didn't have a conversation with this person. Yeah, no, I heard about it from the administrator at the high school. That they were dealing with this.
So again, if I may, so Steve made a motion, it was seconded by Jim. We opened for discussion. The next step would be to vote, I believe.
About adding the agenda item.
You're saying
Yeah, to vote to add to.
For tonight.
Yeah, quick, further discussion. Steve, I think I understood your intent to be you want to add the agenda item to the next meeting of the Board of Education?
No, tonight.
Tonight, okay.
For those who want to edit tonight's agenda, say aye or raise your hand. Those who are against it? Opposed?
No, sorry.
Abstentions?
I'm gonna abstain, but I'd like to make a motion once we get that all tallied.
I think that
Well,
was
so
all done.
And do you have that count?
So we have it.
Okay.
7-1.
Do we need to make a motion to add it to a future agenda?
No.
Nope.
Okay, so we can
Just
just ask.
let the board chair know that you would like that to be
That's
considered.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
That's it.
So I think,
So-
yeah,
That's it.
right, Steve, so we can let Trevor know that we should add it to the next
No, it doesn't
agenda
have to
item.
be
Oh, I will
next.
make sure I comply and request within 72 hours prior to the meeting.
I didn't hear you.
The bylaws state I have to make the request 72 hours prior to a meeting, so I'll make sure I meet that time frame.
Yes.
So with this will appear on a future agenda, not sure when, but it will
Exactly
come
right.
up on agenda when there's appropriate timing for the discussion. And I think in the meantime, what our typical practice is board members can raise any questions for the superintendent, so Jan and the administration can be prepared to answer all of our questions. That makes sense to you, Steve.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the annual evaluation report.
Before we go on, I have some questions about the opening weeks
Yeah.
report.
Sure.
And mine are kind of very specific around the start time, and of course, my interest is because I was on the start committee. And I know that there were some issues with, so some of the issues were that the bus time, pickup time for students, I don't know how many students, but didn't change from last year. So that was an initial concern. And I think now it's been adjusted, judging by the information
There
from
was
the
an error in the original.
schedule, okay. But my question is, are the pickup times affording the children the 30-minute delay that we intended? Because I think that was a miss on probably the committee's part and M&J's part when we were reviewing that there was an assumption that the routes would be 30 minutes later than they were last year. And so it wasn't until the buses started rolling that it was discovered that that's not the case. The buses are picking up only roughly 15 minutes later, and the bus routes are longer. So I'm just curious about that. Will that be resolved soon, or?
There's no way to change that. We're picking up more students and we have just an infinite amount of time. So we, in the discussions that I had along the way, we never thought they'd be a half an hour. I mean, we knew that they would take longer than that.
So about 18% of our, right, is that correct? 8% of our students at the high school ride the bus. 18% of the students.
On the highest
On a
of
high day,
days.
that was
it's-
like our high day.
Yeah, it's more like,
They tend to be more at the beginning, and then as the year goes on, fewer and fewer ride. That may have an impact on the length of the runs too, that may shorten things. But, the one parent complaint that I fielded was that the student was being picked up at 7:15. But the year before, the student was being picked up at 6:45 or 60.
6:55, I think.
Yeah, because the student is at the end of the run, is fairly far out. And so person has picked up time, but not the full 30 minutes. Yeah. And as I said, we are down one bus, and that's not from lack of wanting. one
No,
bus,
right,
yeah.
and it's, certainly not to cast aspersions, I know from I think it was just an assumption, I think it was
Yeah,
that explicit question and was never shared.
yeah.
And so, so while some people may have been, had a certain level of awareness of how it was gonna work, I think that discussion didn't happen at the committee level. And so that's why I wanted to be sure that we were aware and, because it is, there's a reason we wanted to give the rules 30 minutes, so.
Yeah, well, and I don't mean to switch that, but good work, because have you seen how many states now are talking about mandating it?
Yeah, I have. And
It's
what
even
are we
being talked
hearing,
about here.
what are we hearing from the teachers? Have we gotten feedback from the teachers about it, or is it too soon?
Well, I was looking at tardies the first few days, and I'm not gonna comment. Anecdotally, though, it looked like it was lower than, what do you think?
I've noticed people showing up on time.
Yeah.
I haven't been in a class with any tardies so far, I think, so.
Good. How do kids look? Do they look like they're still? You know, I mean, I used to teach AP Lang at first period in the morning, and I would tell you, that was a hard push.
I mean, my first class in the morning is AP stats, so I feel like kids anywhere like, oh, I want to smack in the morning. But
Yeah.
no, I feel like that kind of like Elliot, I haven't seen many tardies at all or absences, at least my first period.
Oh.
So I think it's worked out well.
Good. We'll keep gathering the data to see how it's going, but that's what we heard, right? From the
Yeah.
schools that went to, they said it made a difference.
Yeah.
So we hope that will be the same for us.
Good.
So, the parents that did express concerns have all been addressed at this point, or at least discussed.
Yeah, Mrs. Pendleton's been working on that, and Mrs. Pendleton worked with M&J to rearrange bus routes, and a lot of work to see that, and it probably will continue. As the ridership begins to drop off, they'll probably continue to do that.
So I just wanted to make that comment, that certainly that folks are
Thank
being,
you.
it's being addressed and being looked at, and
Yeah.
what's being done can be done.
So far, yeah, and we have said if we can add at least a bus, that would help immensely. We also have one less, another bus route that kind of picks up different needs and so forth. But so we're struggling to get people, where they need to be on time, and we have tweaked them quite a bit. And today I looked at, we've been logging them every day, and we have literally, I think there's one that's just a little bit outside of what we would want it to be. So we'll look at if we can take any stops off of that one and put it on a different run to kind of even them out a little bit. So that's really what we've been doing. And I do have to say that I think some people were, because the routes are different and we've combined, high school and middle school, students that might have gotten dropped off in the beginning of a run, let's say last year, might be midway or at the end of a run this year. So just a change of what they're normally used to, none of us like change, you know how it is. So, we're trying to do our best to kind of make that all even out a bit.
So I have just a question, maybe Karina or you can get into it. So basically, kids would get picked up earlier, right, from their stop. So now is the adjustment because school is starting later? You're talking about 30 minutes. So does that mean it's 30 minutes or later than they normally are picked up?
No,
No, okay.
that was some
Maybe
of the
you could clarify.
issue, is
Okay.
that now they're roughly, and again, depending on the route and where they are, they're getting picked up roughly 15 minutes.
That's what I was saying. So Nora,
Instead of 30 minutes,
the
right?
intent was 30 minutes. I'm just asking because.
Yeah, the assumption was that everything would shift by 30 minutes,
That's all.
right? And, to echo what Julie's saying, it's no mean feat to figure
Oh,
these
no,
bus
I'm
routes
just
out.
asking.
It's,
Yeah.
AP stats may be helpful.
Just asking that.
So, yeah, and as we were doing our research, it's always the buses that dictate a lot of this success, right? It's so critical. So, yeah, I think thank you for dealing with it.
I call it yellow fever. I have it every time.
Yeah.
It's the year this time of year.
And the thing is we've been on Channel 8 a bunch of times. And
Oh,
I-
and the school starts.
Yes.
I know.
And
they
I was
grabbed
like,
that
oh, it's
story
all
and ran
different.
with it.
Oh, yeah.
I do have one other question, if I may, and it's related to one of the citizens' comments and the flex period / advisory. I would like, if we could, to add an agenda item, because I'm concerned, when I hear what advisory may consider or discuss, and I hear some of what was presented tonight, there may be some concern that we have tried to bring up at previous meetings, and so I'd like to maybe bring that as an agenda item. I don't know what that agenda item would be called, but maybe it's a curriculum review or I don't know, but I do think there's an opportunity for us as a board to talk about what we heard tonight and talk about that advisory class.
But,
If there's an opportunity.
clarifying question. Are you talking about what Mr. Ratneri talked about, or, sorry, I don't mean to talk like. you know.
Yeah.
I'm here to talk about what it's like.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so that would be very different from
Yes.
advisory. I'm not sure we should
Right.
put those in the same
I agree.
piece of
think-
information.
Okay, although I hear some things about advisory,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
it smell like an opportunity for what he presented to be pushed out in the classroom.
Can I just say something? Anybody here is more than welcome to get my email address from
That's
Jan,
true.
and I would like to just have a good discourse more than anything. You know, it's just have people back and forth and it needs to stay. So if any of you have any questions about anything, by all means, feel free to email me or call me or whatever. I have no problem with that.
Thank you.
I think what I hear what Karina's saying is that you want to make sure that this free choice, I'm all for free choice and open discussion, but we want to make sure that, I don't know if this is the correct wording, but maybe limiting or maybe knowing what's coming up and not just having open discussion without having, you know,
Some
boundaries.
Yeah, I get concerned too. I mean, like, maybe I'm old fashioned. When we talk about dating, do we have like people who are qualified to have that discussion? And what does it have to do with curriculum? But that's just no need to respond to that. That was just me extroverting.
So I just, my sense this evening is that I think the terminology is getting confused. I think advisory has nothing to do with curriculum. Advise and not in the
That's part of
way
my
that you're
concern, too.
presenting it. And I think, I don't mean to be hardcore about it, but there's certain things that advisory, I think, had an intent to work with students on various subjects. It's not about, we're talking about history, we're talking, no. It was more, and Jen, certainly as superintendent, you can clarify, but I know the purpose of advisory, even in middle school, was really to talk about certain emotional things that may be happening, you know, in terms of development or in terms of sort of social emotional well-being. Not about, you know, language arts. It wasn't, that's not the way it's directed. That's not my understanding of how it was ever even implemented in Ulster public schools. So the comment about, you know, addressing certain things in a balanced way makes sense just for teachers in general, that in a curriculum area. You know, if you're talking about history, you want to be able to provide opportunities on various sides. But I think advisory is just different than where we may be going with it. Right, and I don't have these students there, so I don't know.
So I took a note, I'm sure Trevor did too, about a possible agenda item about curriculum. And maybe that might look like, and I know we can't discuss it now because it's not an agenda item, but it might look like, you know, what is our process for choosing, you know, curricular items? And what process does that go through? And what things come to the board, what things don't come to the board, what's teacher choice, what's part of a committee work? Yeah, that can be done. We can ask Mrs. Goff to put a presentation together at a future board meeting some point this fall.
Thank you. And I'd like it to include advisory as part of that.
And that would have to be the high school folks, because she's not, she has no role with that.
My daughter is actually on advisory, and there are certain subjects that get talked about. I mean, they were, last year had to make a rally poster.
Sir, if I could, you had the opportunity to speak and we appreciate it. We have your comments and we took them under advisement. Certainly the superintendent has, so to continue at this point.
I just thought I was adding to the
I
advisory
appreciate
council to clarify that there's some.
Board members have
there
an
are things
opportunity
that
to
do
do that. Our board members have an opportunity to do that. Thank you. There's a process.
The next on your agenda is the annual evaluation report.
This is a requirement. There are actually two items that are related to each other. One requires a motion, not this one, the next one. This just reports back to you about the how many certified staff were evaluated in our system at the close of last year. We used to do this report in the spring. Now we do it in the fall. It makes a lot more sense because we're finishing up evaluating right into June. And this talks about, by law, what we have to focus on in our professional development. Among many other things we have to focus on in professional development. And it talks about mentoring of new teachers through teen program, et cetera. Anyone have any questions about this report?
Are you pleased with what you're seeing? Are there areas of concern or?
Yes and yes, yes, yep, always. So there's areas for growth all the time. And so folks who came to convocation heard us talk about refocusing, you know, I don't think we can say post-COVID, but in the new order of things, refocusing, really aligning our goals. But yes, we've seen a lot of growth over the last few years in adopting student-centered activities, student-centered learning rather, formative assessment, a lot of what we've been focusing on in our strategic plan.
Just a quick comment, Jean, so for a question, is there going to be a reevaluation of the process, or just given your comments about COVID and how the focus will change a little bit?
Evaluation
Yeah.
process. So no, the evaluation process so this is where it gets interesting. The state allowed us the flexibilities during 2021, and this actually gets addressed in the next report, 21-22. 2021 was a complete loss, you know, as far as end of year evaluations. 21-22, the state created flexibilities. So we went from formals to informal evaluations. There's only the end of year ratings. So really minimize the amount of time people were spending in classrooms and took some of the pressure and stress off. They sent those flexibilities forward one more year, in part because we're still dealing with all that, but also because the state is in the process of creating a new evaluation plan. And they've been in that committee for a while. And they don't seem to have, they're working on it, let's just say. Progress is slow. So, but that all goes through our local PDEC, Professional Development and Evaluation Committee, which is populated by administrators and teachers. And that committee creates the plan for our district, which we're going to ask you to approve in a minute. The outline is there. It's the same plan you've been looking at now for, well, many years, but now tweaked with the new flexibilities.
So, Jen, can you comment, what's the team program? Is that, it looks like sort of another name for teachers, experienced teachers to be working with student teachers?
Exactly, it's exactly what it is.
That's a different,
And so
a different name.
in right now, the state of Connecticut, there are modules that new teachers need to complete depending upon what they teach. They have either 2 or 4 modules, and they're in, you know, professional growth instruction. And they work with their mentor to complete and submit those. And that went well last year. I expect it will go well this year too.
Just a comment, right? So for both for the next one, yeah, 142 summative evaluations, 2 to 3 informal depending on the teacher status, 1 RLP per teacher. That's just an amazing amount of work. 1, there's people doing this. 2 is just, yeah, how do you possibly find time to do all this balancing out of it? Right. It's just absolutely crazy.
Thank you. And I think that's part of the problem is that education is a very flat organization. When I tell folks how many people our administrators observe, supervise, and evaluate, they're shocked. You know, because in other industries, you may evaluate 7, 10 people. You know, that they'll evaluate 45 and 50.
I just want to say real quick that at the Cape Board of Directors meeting, they had the commissioner there.
Yeah.
And I happened to bring up, as other people did, higher education and how teachers are really being trained and the things that they're not being trained in. And so Commissioner agreed, you know, it's actually that, you know, there's teachers that really don't even have an understanding, don't have the experience of working, say, in a rural setting, don't have the experience of working in a city. How do you address adversity? How do you address parent conferences? All of those things for teachers as an educator haven't been updated. So that's part of my little, you know, piece to talk to, you know, like Charlene, which is like, yeah, we're trying to get it to happen, but it's tough. Yeah, tough.
Next, we have teacher and administrator evaluation plans.
So This I actually will need a motion on, and Amity Goss has outlined, by the way, she apologized, she couldn't be here this evening, she had a family commitment. But this is the same plan you have seen with the changes that represent those flexibilities that I was just speaking about that the state provided for us. And she's outlined for you what the plan is under the teacher evaluation flexibilities right there at the end of page 1. And that goes on to the next section. We are still, so the bottom of the second page, we are rating people. So students, teachers do get a rating at the end of the year. So that document that goes into the personnel file and stays there forever, that says how the person was performing this year. So we're not missing that step, which, you know, with my background in HR, I think is so incredibly important. You don't want to miss a year, and we don't miss a year in this district. All teachers every year, all non-certified staff every year. So then the final page outlines the administrator evaluation flexibilities and how those are scored. And I do all the administrators, and I do that through multiple site visits, informal conversations. There's a goal setting meeting, a mid-year, an end of year, and multiple visits to their schools or performance, even here at a board meeting for their performance expectations, where they talk about what they're working on. And that's done annually as well. So when you do move to approve this, what we would need is a motion says move to approve the Old Saybrook Public Schools teacher and administrator evaluation plan for 22-23 as presented.
Motion approved.
So there's Leanne's
Second.
motion. Do you need to hear it again?
Motion to approve.
And was there a second?
Do you have a motion?
Discussion?
My question is, what are some of the major criteria that are being used to evaluate teacher performance, Jan, and what administrators are involved with that process?
So we use the CCT, which is the state's standard for teacher performance, domain and indicators. And that includes planning for learning, the learning environment, how they create the learning environment and create relationships with students, how they set up behaviors in their classrooms, transitioning from one activity to another. The second domain is how do they plan for their classes, and all of the work that goes into the preparation for the class. The third domain is instruction. What does it look like when they're teaching in the classroom? What do they do to engage students? What do they do to assess students so they know where they are? And then the fourth one is a professionalism domain. What do they do to contribute to the school and to the profession? And so those are the areas, and there are 4 domains and a series of indicators under each one. And the people involved in that would be all of the building administrators, Kathy Bye with certain folks. I go in and see first-year teachers and teachers who are about to receive tenure. I go in and observe them and do write-ups of my observations. Do I miss anybody? Amity Goss
Amity, I was
does
gonna say, is Amity
instructional
involved in that
leadership,
too as well?
teachers, and she'll sometimes support we'll each support each other as second, I don't, but everyone else does as secondary evaluators in some situations. And so Amity will either be primary or secondary.
Okay, and if I can ask a follow-up, it sounds like a lot of it's based on experiential learning and administrators actually sitting in the back of the teacher's class on a regular basis. Do you have any thoughts as to how often that's typically done for, let's say, a first-year teacher?
So a first-year teacher is usually seen about at least 3 times by their primary administrator. And typically it's more than that, including some informals. With the last few years and the way things have gone, it may have been less than that.
Sure.
But certainly with secondaries and primaries and new teachers, we do prioritize getting into their classrooms. I try to get into their classrooms early so that if there are any concerns or questions, you know, these are unknown entities in our community. They have no history with an older sibling, you know, so we can at least speak to it, you know.
Okay.
I've been in the classroom, I've seen it.
I'm extremely impressed that you get into the classroom to do the observations, because throughout my whole career, I've never heard of the superintendent doing that, so I think that's amazing.
And thank you very much. And I have felt really guilty about how in the last 2 years with COVID, I did not get into classrooms much. So I'm trying to outdo myself. I've been in 10 as of today.
Wow, that's amazing, and you know what, it's so important, because
is.
then you don't feel like you're putting on a dog and pony show. The
Yep.
teacher doesn't feel like, oh, they're coming in, I'm going to do this. If it just becomes part of the process, it just is normalized.
Today,
So,
most of them ignored me and I loved it.
yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
commendable.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you. It helps me a lot.
Yeah.
If there's no other questions.
I do
I'm sorry.
I do have a question, because of course we have acting administration in the high school, and I remember that when the plan was put in place, so I guess I'll just ask the question, is do you have an accelerated evaluation timeline? Because I know we had talked about what the timeline would look like for filling the role long term. And so do you have to, is there that additional pressure of having accelerated review process for those administrative roles?
No, not really, because I don't really need to accelerate it. So the goal setting is completing on Monday. They talked about it at convocation. I know you were there and they did that panel and they will be done with their goal setting final draft Monday, the 19th. And then I start holding the official goal meetings with the administrators with deliverable dates. So from that point on, it's pretty natural. It says here by October, this would happen, by November, this would happen. So it becomes its own plan. And then, of course, I can go and observe people as much as I like to and whenever I think it's appropriate. And of course, I work with them so I can see their goals being moved forward. So I'm not concerned about that.
Okay. Okay, great. So other questions we will.
I just want a clarification, sorry, is that the student learning objectives, are they based on our strategic plan
Student learning objectives
that
are,
are here, like
yeah.
engaging family, I mean, it just looks like it connects, they're great.
Well, yes, it does.
That's what I meant.
Yes,
Yeah.
it actually, it was not part of our strategic plan. It's something the state told us we had to do.
Okay,
It
there
just
you
so
go.
happens that
That we
it
were part-
does work very. well.
Perfect, yeah, thanks.
Yeah. It's about outcomes,
Yeah.
student outcomes. What do they learn?
Okay, I'm gonna call for a vote to approve the teacher administrator evaluation plans for 2022-23 as presented.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
This is Steve's hands up. He's out. Yeah.
He's in the shadow.
He's in the shadows. yeah.
Aye.
Thank you. All those against? Opposed?
Unanimous.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, student enrollment.
Trevor, before you start the next topic, because we said one conversation, just want to remind the students that they can leave at 8:30.
We just,
These
we
clocks
just, did you read us?
These
We were
clocks
just
are
talking about it.
incorrect, so.
Who's watching it?
Oh, it's really 8:24.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody-
Oh, yeah,
We're all
Really?
set up for you.
Yeah, all these
But you
clocks.
can
don't
stay
work.
if you want to.
None of these clocks are right.
Right.
We're starting at
Stay
11.
if you want to.
It's Alice in Wonderland around here. Just messing with you. So yes, if you want to get up and go at 8:30, you don't worry about that. We expect that you need to go home. We talked about this in our meeting. If you need to go home and study. We're with you.
That's
We're
right.
with
It's all
you in
about
spirit.
Okay, student enrollment.
Yeah, this is just the opening report on student enrollment, and I would call this a happy story, and I'm going to point something out to you. I'm gonna do math in front of Dr. Chang. It's the most stressful moment of my entire meeting. I just want to point out that the June 1st, 22 actual enrollment, you can go down to the grade 12 and see that we graduated 108 students. If you go up to the last column on the right and you look at the top, you can see that we're bringing in 86 pre-K students, 68 K students. So I'm pointing out the difference in the class sizes. But I would like to go down to the bottom of that last row and point out we are only down a very few students overall. We actually, and we lost that enrollment year over year at the middle school. We're down 14 students at the middle school. We're up 8
at Goodwin, and we're up 1 at the high school. So, and also that prediction, the projected enrollment, the NASDAQ projected enrollment predicted a worse picture. So we did during COVID start to see a little bit of a turnaround on student enrollment. You know, Saybrook is slightly disadvantaged in that we're not going to see new homes being built. I drove up to Simsbury recently, and I was going through like the Farmington Simsbury area, and there were new homes being constructed. I don't know when the last time was that I saw, you know, a street being built and 5 or 6 homes going in. But they had that kind of land to do that, and I don't think that's true here. But what I'm very excited to see that the NASDAQ predictions are not coming true. I thought we'd be down below that key number before this year, actually.
So with the students out, that column, do you have a breakdown of students who have moved out of district versus transferred to perhaps a private school?
The number, no, I don't, but the number of students who moved out of district is much, much higher than the number of students who went to private schools. And we had some students come back from private schools this year as well. Lot more, transient's too strong a word, but there's a lot more movement everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Employees, kids, families, everywhere, you know.
School.
Yeah, yeah, that too, that too. Although we saw very little of it during COVID. So I think this is a good story. I think this is a happy story.
So the, you know, the students are plus 30, well, right now, so the plus 30 between last year and this year, and always a good news. And so it's a plus-ish, plus 20 in kindergarten. All the other ones sort of just cancel out between each other. There's a plus 20 kindergarten, which is good news because it's either people moving in or we underestimated birth rates and so on. But the surprising thing for me was the plus 10 in high school, right? Because usually you can just take a look at the last year and grade and see, right? So the plus 10, and that is really surprising, right? Because people don't normally move their kid in the senior year.
And we picked a couple kids up who are Saybrook students who came back to us.
That's actually, that's reasonable, right? They were at Williams or something, they came back, or some students back, that's fine, but someone who comes in from another state at the senior year, there's probably some of those as well.
There are, well, in my senior exit interviews last year, I talked to 2 young ladies who had just moved here.
Yeah, that's great.
And they had nothing but nice things to say about the way our school compared to their other experiences.
I'm sorry, but I think it speaks a lot to the student body, right? That you can actually welcome students from last year, and because you guys have known each other, all your students forever, right? And so to bring someone in coming in, that just that speaks loud.
I think they're excited to see new people.
Okay.
They gotta put me different.
Yeah.
No, it's, I was gonna say that, and Karen knows this as well, many years ago, you know, from the middle school, we had so many students that were exiting and going to Xavier, going to Mercy. And then the school board at that time really needed to take a look at the high school, you know, and see what the high school, maybe something was missing there. And that's why the parents were really having a sense of, this is where we want our children to go for their last high school years. But looking at this and just being on the board, the high school's just strict, it's stronger and stronger every day.
Yeah.
And parents want their children to go there.
Magnet school.
Yeah, in a related story, we have 6 students in magnet schools right now. And we just want you to be aware of the tuitions associated with that. We are required to pay those tuitions to the magnet schools by the state. The state sets the tuitions for each school, and that report sort of outlines that for you. That number, you're right, Eileen. I remember a time when it was more like 14.
Totally.
Yeah. And we have, last year at this time, there were 4 Old Saybrook students attending full-time magnet schools. There are 6 now. New London, by the way, has gone completely magnet, the entire school.
The whole district went magnet.
I thought they just rebuilt that high school.
They may have, but their whole program now is a magnet program. Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
Is this Friendship School? Is that some, I've not heard of that before. I did Google it. So I know what it is, but I just, is it, but is it, have we had students there before?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Yep, and I'm ashamed to
Bye,
say I
guys.
don't
Thanks,
have a
Amy.
lot of.
Bye.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
See you soon.
Good night. Okay.
Do we? That's just an annual report that you get. This one doesn't, the next one's gonna need it.
The meeting schedule?
Yes, yep. So we have, the current meeting schedule only goes through the end of this calendar year. And then we need to vote tonight to set the proposed meeting schedule for the spring through the fall, taking our usual break in the summer. And this is what we're proposing for a schedule this evening. You can see we built in the fall leadership evaluations, the mid-year conversation with the superintendent. We moved the April ones kind of wonky because I'm sorry, no, we didn't. We left the April 2023 during vacation week. Not sure how the board feels about that. But there was a struggle. There was a struggle to find another week. You remember why, Trent? I don't.
Yes, in most years, there's a 3-week gap between our second meeting in March and our first meeting in April, just because of the way it falls this year, there's just a 2-week gap, so there's nowhere to put that meeting. That doesn't put us in back-to-back meeting weeks.
Yeah, we have a quorum. And if I'm
See
right,
if we have a quorum, see if we even need the meeting. It could be that if we can plan
As needed.
efficiently, we can move stuff into March and then later in April instead of having a half April.
if I remember, I think that the November 22nd meeting sometimes it's kind of iffy because it's week of Thanksgiving, and so we usually say scratch it
Yeah, sometimes
Yeah.
that does happen.
a lot of times.
Because we know that you guys love in Littlefield, we have her confirmed for the 23 meetings for the board leadership conversations as well.
Okay.
And we'll serve dinner that night.
So, I mean, just a comment, since we're talking about meeting schedules, is that, with the exception of the leadership meetings and certainly the meetings involving Jan's evaluation, I highly recommend, and we will talk about this, that all the other meetings go virtual. And you don't make them all, I mean, like we discussed it, right, so really it's for spare Jan's schedule. But if we make it hybrid, so there's a choice, then essentially that choice for spare Jan's goes away.
So logistically, I'm sorry. Logistically, that's feasible that if we have the executive session, we can close out, go in a separate session, even if we're remote, right? That worked successfully.
Yep, so I've been having periodic conversations with Zoom, and they have told me that they're planning when, I'm not sure, but adding the breakout room functionality to the webinars, which is what we utilize, which would be perfect. Last year, the way that we tackled that was we had you guys exit the Zoom, go into a Google meeting, and then go back into Zoom. It's not pretty, but it works. You know, we got through it. And so as soon as that functionality is available where we can do it all through Zoom, then, I'll make sure we transition to that. But, as Dr. Chang said, in terms of hybrid, it's doable. We're doing it right now. Just so you guys can see. This is what YouTube sees right now. So anybody who's streaming us live sees us kind of paneled in the room, and then Steve is remote, so they see him in his own separate panel. But if we were all remote, it would be kind of the gallery view that you're used to, from other conferencing meetings. So.
Can I just ask a point of order? Isn't this discussion supposed to happen after, because this one we need a motion for, correct? Did I hear that correctly, or we don't?
We do.
We do, so that, so just for a point of order. Jan makes her presentation about this, then we have a motion, and then we have the discussion.
So we will need a motion to set the proposed meeting schedule for 2023. And a motion? Second. Discussion?
That's interesting because some things come back synchronistically. I was having this conversation with somebody else about remote and how that was gonna work, and think that what we decided at our last season was that Janice pulls often in many directions. And that for her comfort level, so she doesn't have to drive different places, that she'd be able to present a board meeting remotely. And that would just be given, correct me if I'm wrong, then everybody would go remote. There's not going to be anybody that's going to come here because she's going to be remote. But then if there's a meeting that we're going to be in person, you know, for certain reasons, then there would be an option for people to go remote or come in person. I think that's really what we're talking about. You know, that's here, you know.
I think
you want
Trent is
to come
always
to an
here.
office.
Right, because this
No.
always has to be set up for, right?
No,
Not necessarily,
No,
if,
no.
if
Oh,
we
right.
were hybrid, then yes, I have to be here.
Got it.
But if everybody is remote,
Yeah.
I can
Right.
run the meeting
Yeah.
from anywhere.
we're trying to.
And still show it to the public.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
good.
Right.
So, is there anything lost in translation, I guess, on the comments from the board members, in terms of presentations on a screen, if you're in the room versus if you're home and you have it on the screen? Personally, I don't see any loss in translation, and I think it's a good form. So to George's suggestion, I think we should consider it as a board, you know, and how we do that in terms of what means and when should be
Yeah,
discussed.
I agree.
I agree, and I think we just need to be sure to communicate clearly which are high, you know, in advance, so that whoever wants to participate knows how. Thank you to Trent for this new setup. This is wonderful that you looked into it and got it, so kudos to you. And, oh gosh, I would just offer the April vacation meeting. In my workplace, there's an increased emphasis on ensuring that you take time off and really take time off to be away. And I think that it would be important. Do you know what that looks like?
I've heard about it. There's a rumor.
So I would propose that as we consider this schedule, that we remove the meeting that's scheduled to happen during vacation week, so that we could sort of walk the talk of saying, you know what, it's vacation week, and we just, based on the way the calendar falls, shouldn't have a meeting that week. That would be my proposal.
To piggyback on that, I couldn't agree more, because if we plan, right now, we're in the planning stages, so we know well enough in advance, we make one agenda the week before, we know what we're gonna talk about. I mean, typically, most boards meet once a month. We have the luxury of meeting twice a month, so to me, it just makes sense to just, why have it? It's vacation week, why put something else on her plate? Some of you have children in the district, or, you know, it's vacation.
I'd probably say, in theory, it makes good sense, so I would leave it up to Jan, because she's the one that really, and the chair, because they develop an agenda. And if there's a lot of things that are percolating, that's, you know.
You know, Trevor, it's obviously it's up to you, but no matter what we do, we have a motion and a second on the floor, so we'd have to vote on that one and then vote on a new motion that we decide to pull up.
So the motion on the floor is to approve
As
this
presented.
as presented.
Right.
Which includes the vacation week.
Right.
Thanks for vote.
Yeah.
All those in favor of as scheduled?
Okay.
Aye.
Looks like 7 in favor.
Okay.
7.
Those against? Abstentions?
Got it, Trent. You get that vote?
7-2 and 0.
Yeah. Okay.
Facilities report.
Facilities report. So, we had a great facilities committee meeting, which Ellen chaired, and we invited Scott Peebrich to that meeting to talk about the lights committee work. But of course, the bulk of facilities work ends up falling to Julie Pendleton. So I'm going to ask her to talk about, you know, what she worked on this summer, what she's continuing to work on, to kind of give you a wrap up of where we are on our various projects, all of which were supposed to be relatively small. But didn't turn out.
So, let's start with a bright note, the lights. Which we did have some soft openings this past week, and we are really, really pleased with how that went. We had a couple of areas that we just added a little bit of additional lighting, and I think it really made a difference for spectators that are coming in and accessing the field. The parking, I think, has been ironed out pretty well, so that's been a nice opening for sure. And then the official one, as Alan spoke about earlier, will be the 30th of September to kind of acknowledge all the donations that were made. That project took place all summer long. I'm sure there were some of you that were watching it. It was fascinating. It was time consuming, and it required a lot of detail and coordinating of many people. So as another piece to that project, all the donations that were made, there are bricks in something that has been called Monument Way that the committee has talked about, and there was some work being done to move towards at least getting a rendering. One member of the committee actually did a very nice job making sort of a nice rendering of some thoughts that the committee has had. That hopefully will get formalized at some point. I know the selectman was working on that today along with the chairman of the committee, and Alan, I know you will hopefully receive the same phone call. So that's moving along. The project came in, there's enough money to complete it. We still have trees to plant. So that's the lighting project kind of in a nutshell.
If I can just
Sure.
interject with a comment, so, Julie, you've been phenomenal in this process, and we get bits and pieces of things in the supply chain that are delayed, and in essence, you're a general contractor for this whole project, and I'm amazed, and I know that Jan is as well as our committee and our board, is the hours you put in, the on-site visits, just the camaraderie actually that was shared with all the folks that came in that were doing the different jobs and stuff. So I was amazed at watching you the few times I got there, just that everybody was excited about the project, and you made it, you brought it to fruition. Truly, there were so many points that it could have failed, and you made it happen. So I thank you, and I know the board thanks you for that.
Thank you, Alan. I have to send some kudos to Larry Bonin and his crew. They were a phenomenal partner. And they stepped up big time for a lot of the excavation work and logistics as well. So it was fun to have such a nice partnership with the town and everyone involved.
It's a
So
nice town gown kind of thing, right? In some places, boards of education don't have that relationship with their town and vice versa. So it is a nice symbolic and literal connection.
yeah, it was amazing. So we still have trees to plant because that's one of the pieces of this project that is required. However, with the extreme drought, we've kind of just decided to wait a little bit to put anything in the ground, because that's certainly we've had a tough summer with the amount of, or the lack of rain, I should say. So in addition to that, the press box is also getting a new camera system, an enhancement for sports as well. And that system will be a live stream system for the field, the turf field, and also another camera for the gymnasium, the high school gymnasium. So parents would be able to sign into a particular service where they can watch a game live if they can't be there, grandparents, that kind of thing. Other have also brought this system in. It's called Pixelot. They actually were going to come today, but the rain, lo and behold, we get rain on a day where we need them here. So they postponed it because electricity and rain just aren't a good combination. So, and Comcast was actually scheduled to come today as well, because they obviously need to run a line to make sure. So.
Another 8-hour window.
Yeah,
some
between
other
10
day.
and 2. Yeah, between 10 and 2, and it rained, so that didn't happen today, but hopefully we'll get back on the docket there to get them out here. In addition, we're doing some upgrades to cameras and security cameras, new software is the primary driver there, that the current software system that both the police department and all the municipal buildings in town have, as well as all the school buildings, we all share the same software, and that software is coming to its end of life. So the upgrade is happening across the board between the town and the Board of Education. We'll all have new software to run that, and that's been in process, along with some other upgrades to technology, which include the wireless access points. So on to some really exciting things like air conditioning that I know everybody really has invested in this summer. This was a summer when it would have been nice to have. We're making great progress. We went out to formal bid. I just want to kind of remind everyone, we went out to formal bid on the lion's share of this project, which was for the piping and the coils and all of the work that is going to be happening over the next several months. That bid came in through the formal bid process at $1.1 million. The funds are will be from a variety of sources, one being state and federal, flow through federal state money, and obviously some of the other areas that the board earmarked funds would be from the sinking fund and the off-budget account. The sinking fund is the money that the town is going to vote on to put into, it was the end of the year surplus for the Board of Education that'll go into an account earmarked for air conditioning. So all of those pieces together will hopefully fund this project, which is all in between 1.7 and $1.8 million. So it's a big nut.
Julie, just a quick, thank you, Carmen, just a quick comment. So the Board of Finance looked at that in their August meeting, right? The sinking fund, and that was approved by the Board of Finance.
Right now it goes to a town meeting. for the
Town meeting
finance.
is, and that's on your list of reminders, the town meeting on the 26th.
Yeah, they're coming up. So, and while we're on air conditioning, moving forward on the other two buildings, which are, all three projects are very different types of projects because of the heating systems and the cooling systems we currently have within the building. The middle school is going to probably be the easiest of all of them because they do not have the same type of heating system that the high school and or Goodwin have, which are, you've heard me talk about unit ventilators. So not to get technical, but to very easily explain it, they will not have a system that runs through their normal venting system. They'll have to have the units that hang on the wall, and then they'll all be vented outside to a central compressor. So it's a very different setup due to the way the building itself is piped. So we're going to get some preliminary information that we can share with you as to costs. And also if each building can support the electrical supply that will be needed to run those units. I've just today actually worked with other school districts that are going through the same thing and how the funding will work. And we'll be bringing much more of that to you because these jobs being the size of them, being pretty extensive, have some prevailing wage and other things incorporated in them. So we'll talk about what that means for the Board of Education and how those projects might move forward from a funding perspective. So that was a lot of information. You also, on those projects, just to be clear, so that major part of that project went out to formal bid. And back in the spring, you approved 2 bid waivers because of supply chain issues for the electrical supplies and labor. So that, just to be clear on that project, it's gone through all the formal processes necessary to be completed. We're looking at hopefully towards the end of next summer, and that will be very much contingent upon whether we can get the electrical supplies we need to finish that project. So that's air conditioning kind of wrapped up. I hope you're getting to see the new gym floors, both in the middle school and high school. They are beautiful. They really came out very, very nice. And they look more collegiate to me. You know, they're very professional, two-tone, really made a big difference. They're light, they're bright. They've spruced up the gym. We're also getting the banners, some of them redone, and we're gonna work on how to hang those and make the gym at the high school look a whole lot better, I hope, when we're done with that. And the next budget, you'll see, you know, painting and things like that coming your way. We talked about the high school field lighting, and that's pretty much, like I said, wrapped up. We're putting up 2 more lights on an existing pole in the parking lot for access, so people can see, you know, well when they're entering the field. And that's kind of what has kept us pretty busy all summer.
Questions for that? Jim?
Yeah, Julie, around this may be for Alan too, around the origination of the project, there was a lot of discussion concerning bleed over of light from the field itself to neighboring houses. Has the project, I haven't seen it myself, lived up to expectations of that, as far as that goes?
Absolutely. Drive down Route 1. Jan and I were like,
We
in
left
awe.
here last week. I got to the intersection where McDonald's is and I thought, oh boy, I can see a lot of light, and it was a McDonald's light. And I couldn't even find our lights right at the intersection.
Ingham Hill was dark.
I can comment to that, so if you think about Portland's lights, you can see them on Route 9, 100 miles away.
Yeah.
I was driving 95, I couldn't see them. I was really surprised, so they're dark sky compliant, right? And any additional lighting that's gonna be added is the same, but literally, the lights drop on the field. the
It's
footprint of the field
amazing.
pretty
It's
much.
amazing.
It's
It lights
amazing.
up
We
the
had to add lights in the walkway going to the field, because you don't even have light there. And you can't see the houses. When you're standing off to the side with the field on your left, you cannot, those houses aren't lit up.
Right.
Wow, okay.
It's amazing. It really is.
Come see it.
Yeah, it really is. It lights the bleacher, like the design. So those lights, when they came in, Alan knows this. It was all computer designed, and the lights were positioned so that when they actually showed up on site, they went up on the poles, exactly the positions they were in, and, you know, tilted in kind of crazy ways to light up exactly the areas we wanted lit. It was fascinating. I know I'm a little strange. because
And
I
we
like
didn't
all
hit
those
any
things.
water with the poles. We just go right here,
Yeah.
go right here to pole
Yeah.
17 feet down into the ground. To not hit water was remarkable. We've never not hit water.
Yeah, that was amazing.
There were times we thought we could dig a swimming pool more easily than anything else.
So I have a comment, because I think, you know, having lived here for almost 40 years and going to the zoning committee meetings, the collaboration, as Julie said, we all know, is something that doesn't happen in every town.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking that maybe there's an opportunity to submit this sense of completion and how it was accomplished with the zoning, you know, board and the first selectman to the CCMC, Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, to be able to have them do a workshop, because other towns learn when they go, and they never really get a sense of, well, how'd you do it? It's usually very compartmentalized, you know, the front end stays here, and then there's but when you got to, and the Carl Fortuna, I mean, that's a huge win. And he worked so hard to really bridge, this is again my observation, bridge a lot of things that have happened in this community and just celebrate it. And Bob Friedman too.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. So, and maybe, you know, next year, because I think the K proposals have been submitted, but those are good things to share because it's education, you know, collaborating with the town and your selectmen, and it can happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Julie.
Yeah.
Building Safety Review Committee.
I'm looking for a volunteer. I was having a conversation with a parent. That was the genesis of this. And then a follow-up conversation with some of my colleagues at the state. And it occurred to me that we're a little bit rusty at having visitors in our schools, and we're a little bit rusty about making decisions about what events do we want to allow and which ones do we think we can't really manage. Because all of our focus in the last few years was how to keep things locked down and closed up. so that nobody was in our buildings. So as we reopen our buildings to the public, we think it's a good time, I think it's a good time for us to do an audit on all of our procedures regarding safety, and that includes physical safety, digital safety, visitor access protocols. And so just overall health and wellness, and that will include some of the, how do you prevent illness and all of that, but I'm looking for a board member to join this committee. This committee will meet 4 times this fall and early winter. Then we're done. We're gonna meet the first time at central office and set up like protocols, and then we're gonna go to each building with key people from the building. And my suggested list of folks that we include might be a custodian, a secretary, a teacher, an administrator. The chief of police says he will join us. Maybe the nursing director or a nurse, an IT rep, maybe for that first meeting to talk about technology and security there. And then I'd like a board member and some students as well, and maybe Paris parents, you know, it's so, and the membership might change. So the parents for Goodwin might not be interested in going to the high school one, but I just want to do this kind of a walkthrough at each building and discuss all of it. And so that we could put something out to the entire school community saying, remember, these are the things we did, well, we're gonna keep doing those. These are the things we're not doing anymore. Here's some new stuff with that, sort of that keep stuff, change.
I'd certainly like to volunteer and have other board members join, or just looking for one volunteer.
I was looking for one just to keep the committee small, but if there are 2 people who are really passionate about it, we'll make room for you.
I'd like to volunteer as well.
If that's okay, then, great, so the first date, by the way, I have the 4 dates in front of you, if you want to pencil them in, October 6th, and this is tentative right now. October 6th, October 20th, November 10th, and November 17th.
And the times being for that?
We're looking at 6 o'clock. All right, great. Thank you very much. Again, a short-lived committee, how often does that happen? Never, right? We could go on and on.
Okay, so that's all we have for the agenda tonight. Just some reminders on.
George, I have a question about a reminder.
A question about a reminder, I mean, I was 2 questions, so I guess I got some clarification on what that said, was 26 special town meeting was, I don't remember, but I guess it would be something on discussion on the project would be exciting.
So I can read to you what our part of it is. It's to appropriate $245,560 from the town surplus for fiscal year 2022 to the Board of Education and transfer the funds to a newly created account entitled Air Quality /HVAC Improvements. And that's the money that we return to the town. 26th at the middle school.
What is the September 19 meeting?
Okay, so when we were getting the reminders, I was going to explain all this. When the police commission has asked, the chief has asked to use this facility for a police commission meeting on Monday. One of the things that they're going to be talking about at this meeting is going to be a school security. They're doing an update on school security. I'm thinking perhaps they're gonna have the SROs there. They've invited an administrative representative from each school. And I wanted to invite you to join us on that evening. If you're available, you can join either in person or virtually. It'll be a hybrid meeting. And we can get the information on the link out to you once we know what that is.
School messenger staff and parent test.
Yep, every year before the snow flies, Trent and I work together to do a test of both the phone and email system to make sure that everybody who should be notified at 5 o'clock in the morning is notified, and anybody who shouldn't be notified at 5 o'clock doesn't hear my voice saying, hi, good morning, because nobody wants to hear from me if they don't have to.
Thanks.
You always get 4 or 5 graduates, parents who say, can I please come off the list now?
I don't have
So
anybody.
that'll happen tomorrow, right?
Wednesday, yeah.
Any more questions on reminders? Okay, I have a motion to adjourn. Second? Second. Adjourn.
All in favor?
Yeah.
No one's not in favor, right? All right, thanks, everybody.
Good job.